Hang on.
Do you want to take yours off or do you want to keep it? It's
No,
back. It's
it.
backwards. Just
Is it really?
Yeah.
But it won't be for the audience, I don't think.
Guess we'll find out. I feel like between you and I, it's like that all we need is like 1% more complicated, and we're both like helpless. I feel like with Zoom, we finally got so used to doing it. We'll get it though. We'll get the hang of it.
I can also tell with Riverside, like the background doesn't mesh as well.
That's why I don't like using the background with it, because it kept cutting half of my face off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to just restart it and turn yours off? Just do that. Unless it's going to screw the link up.
I think it'll screw the link up.
Okay. Are we live?
I think so. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Poop Vein.
Oh, Poop Vein's here. Okay, I'm going. Oh, we got a lot of people in the room. I got to pull this up. Okay. Hey, guys. Hey, what's up, everybody?
Christian Perez.
Hey.
How you doing? James W7746. How you doing?
Cool. K224. Oh, there's a lot of nice names we know well in here tonight. It's exciting. Jamie and I are incapable of using Riverside in a way that's not like catastrophic for some reason. So, but we're getting better at it, which is nice. Should we go?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Passive is holding in a massive poop right now.
Just call me passive. What the hell was
it? Patrick. Did I say passive?
Suddenly said passive is holding. Either way, it works.
He's passively holding it. Okay.
All right.
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I am your host, Jaime Prater, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Patrick Green, and we're joined by many friends in the chat, like our new team members, Kyle and Mario, who are both in the chat tonight, even though they're not recording. You'll be hearing them soon. Also, Eric Stevens is back in there. Christian Perez, lots of people that we know and love, and we're going to be getting your comments on tonight, because tonight is very much a conversation that we want to pull other voices into. And if I can for a second, I'd like to pull another voice into this conversation, which is a nice review that we got. I'm assuming after I threw a temper tantrum on our last episode about the review bombing. This is a beautiful review that came in from Caprica 6. And Caprica 6 says, this was in Apple Podcasts. This group of Alien fans represents a range of views on the franchise and carries out engaging and enlightening discussions of the Alien universe, enjoyable and entertaining. It's great to be in the virtual company of people, and maybe a synth or two, who love Alien as much as I do. We love that, and we love you, Caprica 6. Thank you so much. If you want to leave a review of your own, go ahead and do it, and we'll find it and read it on the show. And I don't think we got any new patrons since our last time, so I won't read those. But Patrick, join Patreon.
Do you know what Caprica 6 comes from?
Is it Battlestar Galactica?
Yes, good job.
Yeah, I know that. I don't like it, but I know it.
Oh, how dare you? We can't be friends. We're done.
Yeah, we're done. The podcast is over. Sorry. It's been a pleasure, everybody.
Everyone's fired.
One quick plug is we are doing a Predator Badlands frame rate tomorrow night, live on Patreon. So that's something where if you're listening to this, I know everybody in the chat right now is a patron, so this is kind of preaching to the choir. But if you happen to be hearing this before Wednesday evening, December 10th, and you'd like to hear some of our dumb thoughts on the Predator franchise, please consider joining. For just a few bucks a month, you'll get access to that. Tons of other stuff. We're doing a lot more now because we're switching to these kind of live Patreon shows, which also show up afterwards, recorded, so you can get it wherever you listen to podcasts. But we're kind of getting more patron voices in doing these live shows and getting you in the chat, kind of like we're doing tonight. And it's a lot of fun. Anyway.
But tonight we are here, depending on what time of day you are. Maybe if you're in England and you're Ross, you're up still. We're talking about what makes an alien film an alien film. And this is an idea that Patrick had, so I'll let you kind of intro this.
Yeah, sure. And what up, Sangria Nurse Bay? Welcome. Thank you for joining. So this came out of something I posted first to Reddit and then to our socials. Jamie's got his Truly out. It's basic. This was something I posted about a week ago or so, and thinking, I probably won't get that much of a response to it. And we got hundreds and hundreds of comments, especially in our subreddit. where people were coming to some interesting consensuses, but also some kind of surprising things that I really wouldn't have considered. And this came out of this conversation that's come up a lot in the wake of Alien Earth coming out, which is people saying things like this is what an alien thing is. This is what an alien thing should not be. This is how, I don't think this belongs in an alien project. I do think this belongs in an alien project. This feels right. This doesn't feel right. And, I was kind of thinking a lot about how that conversation always becomes, it's so subjective kind of by default. And I kind of wanted to lean into that a little bit tonight and talk with just the two of us and our friends in the chat about what an alien film really is to us. And then we're kind of hoping to revisit this down the road a little bit with more of the hosting, the staff, and maybe even revisit it next year with an even larger group or something, because I do think it's a worthwhile conversation, especially as we are in an era now where that is being kind of prodded a lot. The prequels did a lot of that. It's easy to forget how controversial Prometheus was when it came out, but that was greeted by a cacophony of people saying this is not an alien thing. Like this, like what are we doing? What are these engineers like? Why are we talking about the origin of life, the cosmos, and all these things? And then Covenant pushed it even harder. We had a lot of people very upset about a lot of the AI synth stuff in that, and about David with his whole fingering stuff, and the whole kind of Frankenstein aspects in that movie. A lot of people still feel like that is just a disgrace, for Alien. I'm not one of them, but people do feel like that, and they're very much entitled to. And then, we had Alien Romulus, which I think played it very safe and was by and large, everybody kind of agrees that Romulus feels like an alien thing, right? And then Alien Earth comes and it's like really different and really pushing on a lot of themes that, again, just push things in new directions. And it makes you wonder why perhaps it is that I or you or our listeners have issues with some of these themes. So a good way to address that, I think, is to talk about what we kind of think about when we think about an alien film. Like, what really is it?
I think it's a great premise for an episode, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot as I continue to process. As you know this about me, I process these movies over and over, and movies that I even don't really like Prometheus. I think about those movies over, like, what is this about this film that isn't working for me? And then, of course, with Alien Earth, me processing sort of why I feel kind of meh about it, why I'm not excited about it, despite me really enjoying some really amazing things that are in the film or in the show. And I think it's worth discussing. And I really came to at least for me, this aha moment that I shared with you sort of in our green room offline. And I will get to that at some point, but yeah, it's really interesting to see, and we're watching it. We're watching this kind of seesaw with the Alien series, where Prometheus, it like reaches for the sky and it doesn't really work, but there's some things in there that do work that I think all of us can agree upon that are really interesting and fascinating. And then Covenant comes in and there's a little bit of a 180, but it's also doing new things. It's exploring things in some ways that Noah Hawley's exploring in Alien Earth, but also it's not really reaching for the sky. It's sort of reaching for familiar territory, but it's still not working fully. And then we get to Alien Earth, and again, it's that same thing where some really interesting things, some great characters, a really fresh take on the series. But for me and other people, it didn't really work, and why that is. And yeah, it's interesting. It's such a storied series, and now TV series as well. But I have really come to at least a consensus for myself as to what really captures me about the Alien trilogy, the original trilogy, and when that jumped off the rails. But I'm trying to, like, I don't want to engage this like I'm going into what I don't like about Alien Earth. I'm going into what I don't like about. I want to stay away from that, but at the same time, I also have to like talk about what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So I'm sort of, I don't want to be seen as the bad guy in this, or as like the overly critical person, but at the same time, I'm passionate about this stuff, and I've had my aha moment as to why this stuff hasn't been working for me. So I'm excited to explore that more.
Well, let's hear some of it.
Um, Okay, so with the original trilogy, really, for me, if you really just boil it all down or you reduce it all down, these are stories about the little guy, and that little guy is taken the form of Ellen Ripley, played, of course, by Sigourney Weaver, to an amazing effect. Who is legendary, who is iconic, who will be remembered throughout all history and time in cinema. Um, and really her story, but then, and again, that whole truckers in space thing that you were very familiar with Alien, and then in Aliens we're introduced to Marines, but they're also very similar. They're also very blue collar people. Yes, they're Marines and they're a bit of an elite squad, but they're not like paid millions of dollars. They're paid. They're contracted. They're grunts. They do what the company tells them to do. They're not autonomous, and really understanding why we as fans and even general audiences are attracted to them, why we quote Hudson, why we quote Hicks, why we talk about Pharaoh and just the myriad of characters there. It's because we can relate to them. It's because we all know what it's like being the little guy in a situation where there's a larger corporation. And I think, to me, that is the soul of this series. And when the series has lost its way, it's because it's forgotten that.
I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever, and a lot of our listeners also point this theme out. But I do wonder if we keep returning to that over and over again, if it won't get tired, right? At a certain point, it's like, we get it. The company sucks. Like there's, we live in a hyper capitalist future. And I kind of feel like if we are always seeing that, like seeing that this company just kind of walks all over people, at a certain point, it's almost like diminishing returns. And I think this is part of what's the challenge, is because, like, for those of us who live our lives with Alien very front and center all the time, like, we are very aware that that's a core thematic element of it. For the general public, maybe they don't really, like, they really think Alien is about, like, the alien, and they think it's like kind of a spooky ride in space, and the corporate stuff for them might feel fresher than it does for other people. I do think that that's a defining aspect of the original films. And indeed, the top comment on our not corporate, on our Reddit thread, might have been a little slip of the tongue right there, was by Responsible Meal, who said that for them, the Alien series is about corporate greed. And there's tons of people agreeing with them about that. And then a couple people get at something that I think maybe it really is ultimately about as well. And the first person to point this out is Digitalis 303, which is the idea of hubris. So I think that, like, the company doesn't exist in this vacuum where they're just this faceless monolithic evil. Like, they're not evil. They want to make money. That ultimately, that's what that is. And that need to make money and to acquire and to expand drives evil things. And that's the same thing as we see in our real world today. Like, that's the seed of imperialism is not people wanting to take other people over. Like, the seed of imperialism is people thinking that they deserve access to something that other people have, and the other people are just in the way of it. You know what I mean? And I think in terms of Alien, a very common idea is this notion of almost that it's like divine providence, right? That it's manifest destiny, that these companies deserve, or that, especially in the case of Weyland-Yutani, feels like it deserves to just conquer the universe, to take everything over, to acquire every other company, to capture species, alive or dead, to use them for their bioweapons division, for their medicine, for their pharmacology, to to acquire technologies, to, like, eat up other companies like Seegson and some of the other ones that we've even just seen in Alien Earth that are struggling to stay afloat in this, and when this society that Weyland-Yutani is gradually getting more power in. And we see that with the colonists, with, like, the Wildcatters in the second film. We see, like, that they're just completely expendable. Like, they're put on these hostile planets that clearly they haven't done enough research on before sending people to live there, where they're terraforming, and there's immense environmental threats. And then we find out there's immense, animal threats. And the company doesn't give two shits about it. Like, the company's not even keeping track of how long it's been since they've had contact with a colony. Like, they don't even realize until weeks have gone by that something's wrong. It's a huge deal, right? And also the fact that, like, the first film ends with Ripley giving, like, this amazing middle finger to the company, where she decides to destroy the ship. And that in its own ways, obviously an act of heroism, even though it's really just kind of saving, she's not doing it to like save other people's lives at that point because the movie's almost over. She's just trying to get off the ship and get Jonesy off. But it's a heroic act because it's an anti-capitalist action in the midst of a hyper-capitalist, moment. And then she has to like reckon with that, and the company becomes this bugaboo on her back. And I think that that's a huge part of it. I also, though, I really like how in both Jackson's Star and in Alien, we see, and also in like the deleted scenes from the special edition of Aliens, we see a side of the company that feels a little less like overtly evil and just a little more like shitty. You know what I mean? Which I think is more powerful. Like I think it becomes less powerful if you become the Galactic Empire, and you become this just like caricaturized, like, oh, super evil, we are, essentially just Nazis in space. But when you're just a company that like sucks to work for, like they're trying to kind of nickel and dime you out of wages that you've earned, or they're upset that you're destroying their property, or they're not really running a safe environment for you to get work done. Those are things that we really can relate to. And in Jackson's Star, like, with Rain's situation, it's horrible, but it's also real. Like that's a real thing. People get stuck in these contracts and they can't get out. And companies don't give two shits if your family died. They're just like, well, they didn't win the lawsuit, so you got to stick around. That's a real thing that happens. And I think Alien, you made a really good video about this recently, about the realism of some of the original films. I think that's a really realistic conundrum. I think that in the prequels and in Alien Earth, for which again, other than Prometheus, I'm a very big fan of both Earth and Covenant. I think a major departure in those is that there's an element of the sort of like fantastical with the company, where they're chasing the origins of life, or they're chasing eternal existence. They're the kind of tree of life idea, and that I think is probably a spot that rubs people somewhat wrong, because it does push it into this slightly past realistic aesthetic space that people might have some issues with, and I think that's valid. So we don't have to like move on from this yet if you want to keep talking about it, but I do want to say something else. Just a comment that I saved from Reddit that I really loved was actually an Alien Earth quote that I think says a ton about what Alien is about to me. And this is from Skittles Addict. I love the usernames on Reddit are so weird. Anyway, so Skittles talks about Kirsch talking to Wendy in the beginning. When Kirsch says, "You used to be food," Wendy says, "Me?" And Kirsch says, "Humanity. Your lives were short and filled with fear. Then your brains grew. You built tools and used them to conquer nature. You built impossible machines and went to space. You stopped being food. Or should I say, you told yourself you weren't food anymore. But in the animal kingdom, there's always someone bigger or smaller who would eat you alive if they had the chance. That's what it is to be an animal. You're born, you live, you die." And that gets me to something that I think that this is really about too, which is the notion of oblivion. This is something that you and I have talked about extensively. Again, I always want to credit Sarah Welch Larson with that, because she was the one who articulated that idea really beautifully in her book, Becoming Alien. And we got to get her back on the show again. But to me, a big thing about Alien is this idea that we think if we can do enough, if we can push enough, if we can build enough, if we can acquire enough, if we can be strong enough, we can outrun the essential truth of the universe, which is that to be born is also to die. To exist is to not exist. And we spend our whole lives, you and I, all these people in the chat right now, pretending like that's not real. And then at some point it catches up with us. For a lot of us, it's middle age. Like I had a huge crisis a couple years ago during COVID where it kind of hit me. And we've had many episodes where I'm talking about the fact that my kids are going to die someday. And that was something that I was completely not emotionally ready to accept for myself. And when I finally did, it like just destroyed me for a while. That is a really scary thing that not many films do justice to, because people die in movies all the time, Mm-hmm. Everybody dies. People get chased by monsters and blah, 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 blah. But there's something about the loneliness of the deaths in Alien. The fact that it's happening against this backdrop of this incredible vastness, that these people will never be recovered. Like these corpses, I mean, think about that. We always use the GIF as a joke, but when Kane gets ejected from the hull of the ship, like in context, that is a deeply scary thing. Like that body will just be out there for forever. And the
Mm.
thing that we lie to ourselves about, we lie to ourselves that we didn't start there in the first place, you know, that all the constituent carbon and everything that made us didn't just spring out of the ground on Earth and our beautiful warm home. It was from fucking stars colliding in space. It was from
Mm.
chemical reactions billions of years ago. And that is it. That is one of those things where it's like we have these moments where it hits us for a second, and then we just stuff it down. We stuff it down. We're like, oh, I don't want to think about that. And then it comes back. And what I love about Alien is it uses the language of horror to force us to confront that, to force us to confront the idea that we are temporary and that there are things bigger than us that we are very unaware of. And I think that's a really powerful thing to be reminded that, like, at the end of the day, we're just fucking food.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you raise good points. I think that that's a great speech, and yeah, it was a great speech by Kirsch, and I think that there are elements to what we're discussing to be found in Alien Earth, like the big corporations kind of owning everything, but it's definitely more of it's more of a like a seat at the table view of that, as opposed to working for them. I mean, there are people in Alien Earth that work for Prodigy. I think the only way you people we see are the people on the Maginot, and then of course Morrow, who is a bit of an operative for them. Well, he becomes an operative. Yeah, I don't. It's a little bit confusing. But really, honestly, I don't know if the Alien films have really pushed that angle since. Well, Romulus is the first time an Alien film has engaged what it's like to be a middleman since Alien 3, honestly. Because Alien Resurrection, for all of its warts, and it's kind of a funny parody of the Alien series, it's not really about being the little guy in the middle, in the middle of this corporation. Yeah, you've got these bounty hunters or these people on this ship, and they're making a deal with the corporation, but it's not that angle of, hey, it's me over here, and I'm a whistleblower. I'm uncovering something. And to your point, Patrick, I think that theme can get overplayed, and I don't know if Aliens overplayed that theme. I think if anything, Aliens run away from it, and I think as these filmmakers have re-engaged the material, like Ridley Scott, who is a multimillionaire, who came back to Alien with this sort of elevated mindset, like, well, what about life? What about the meaning of life? What about who made us? And all of those things are great things, but I don't know if that's what the soul of Alien is. And I also don't want to sit here and be like, this is not the soul of Alien, don't do this. I don't want to do that. But the proof is also in the pudding, where these films and arguably the show aren't connecting with people as much. And I think, and we all agree on this, what's brilliant about Romulus, I mean, again, the further out I get from Alien Earth, the more I'm thinking about Romulus, the more I'm falling in love with Romulus. And I'm also processing that. Like, why am I doing this? Why is this movie sitting better with me? Is it because it's familiar? Is it because it's familiarity? And I don't think familiarity is necessarily a good thing. I don't think comfort is a good thing, honestly. I think the more uncomfortable we are, the better we grow. I think this IP needs to be a little bit uncomfortable. And I think in some ways, Alien Earth was that. I don't know if it was successful, but it also pushed us a little bit further beyond what is comfortable for an alien property to do or to be. But Romulus really re-engaged what it's like to work for a company. When we see Rain at that office trying to get off of Jackson Star, and they change her allocations or her expectations right there, and she can't see, and she's stuck with them, and what that's like to feel like she's a slave. She's essentially a slave. And we really there's a reason why that scene and all the Jackson Star stuff speak to so many people, and people are like, that's my favorite part of the film. There was a reason why an Alien, unless I'm wrong here, and I mean, I know these films as much as you do, Alien has not engaged that material in that way since Alien 3. Fede Alvarez is the first person to really return it to those roots, and I think that's what really makes it shine. Now, of course, how do you move on from that? You can't just be like, oh, the fucking company every movie. You can't do that. Oh, we're fighting against this fucking company. So how do you tell that story differently? I think you tell that story differently by creating characters that are relatable. By creating, but caveat from that, the characters in Alien Earth were fantastic for the most part. Were they necessarily relatable? I don't think so. But they were great characters, and they had some great dialogue, and they were fresh, and they weren't callbacks to other things. They weren't repeats of other things. All of those things that we've discussed. But again, I'm weighing this. As I'm sitting here, I'm like, I think about the original trilogy and how like amazing that those stories were, and how from that, since that point, everything's has been sitting way lower than those. But then I think, well, is it just nostalgia? Is that why we love these movies so much? Or is it something more? Is it those stories? Is it the little man stories? I mean, but then you pull back and see, you think about other films. But then on the other side, I think of the Marvel movies and why everyone loved those. And it's because people connected to those characters. It wasn't because Captain America was someone relatable. I mean, I think he had relatable feelings, but he was a superhero, as was Bucky Barnes, as was the myriad of other characters. I mean, as much as I'm not a big Chris Pratt fan, his character was really indelible. His character was really sweet and the everyday guy. And I think that's why those films were so successful, is because people saw themselves there. When people stop being able to see themselves in characters is when people are like, okay, those ideas were great, but I don't feel like there was a part of me in it. This is a very complex conversation.
And it's a complex conversation. Before I get back to that, I just want to, before I forget, Sangria Nurse had a really good comment about the Oblivion thing. They said, I think in Alien 3, Ripley's death is a wonderful representation of the eventual fate into oblivion. You can never truly escape the eventuality. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that, because I think that they are really getting at kind of what we were talking about, that just the inevitability of, like even in an act of heroism and in some ways triumph, like Ripley still dies, that's it. And she doesn't die in space, but she does die on a rock in a distant planet as the only woman, in a big pile of lava. I mean, it's pretty grim. Yeah, I mean, I think about Romulus a lot. I love Romulus. I've loved it since the second time I saw it. Not the first time, the second time. I think about, and I also watch Romulus, quite a bit. It's been like probably 4 or 5 months since I've seen it, and I would like to again. The thing with a film like Romulus that is tricky to me is I do think that it's kind of what we needed. It's not kind of, it's what we needed at the time. I mean, it made a shitload of money. It really did. I mean, and as we get farther away from it and we see how challenging science fiction is at the box office lately, and especially R-rated science fiction at the box office, the fact that it made 4.5 times its production budget, that's just, I mean, it was a huge deal. And it got people talking, and there's lots of fan art, and people are very excited about the sequel. And in general, I mean, out there in the world, people are just very positive about it. And I love that, because it's been a long time since we've had something that could be really seen as just a top to bottom win, even though fandom was pretty furious about a lot of elements of it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to happen no matter what, I think. And I think it's great that it did so well. But at the same time, like, I don't want another Romulus. Like, that was such a Force Awakens treatment of Alien to me, that it kind of did the same thing Force Awakens did, which is it was like really well made, really fun, really got, my kids adore that. They also adore Force Awakens, and they saw that in theaters as well. Jude did. He was a baby at the time. But like, that's not how you sustain a franchise. I mean, I think Predator is presenting us with a really wonderful, alternative path, which is, for a long time, we got these really weird, I mean, like the one that came out in 2010 or whatever. This is where you're going to see out there that we're not AVP Galaxy, because I don't know anything about the Predator movies. I watch them all. The one that came out in like 2010 that was called Predators, right?
With Adrian Brody.
Yeah, I actually like that movie.
I did too. I thought that was great.
In general, people do not like that very much, and it did terribly at the time, And then you had the Predator come out in like 2018, and that was just an atrocity. So I think the narrative with the Predator franchise for a long time was like, oh, the first film is the only good one, because Predator 2, even although it's very nostalgic, it's not a particularly tight movie.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. Although I love that one, but that's purely just because I was into it when I was like 6, But anyway, all this is to say, Then you have Dan Trachtenberg come
16.
and give us something that is at the same time very new and very comforting, right? Like Prey was very different in a lot of ways to previous entries, and yet it really felt like a Predator movie. Like it just has that vibe. And then he did something even more amazing, which is he followed up just a few years later and got a theatrical release with a film that again was very, very. I mean, it is much more different even than Prey was, because this is a film that flips the protagonist antagonist role for one thing, but also gives us a totally different window into Predator, into Yautja culture, because and I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a very different take on a Predator film. And it's also just a really good movie that people are seeing and they're really loving, and there's great buzz about it. And, with that movie in particular, like I was ready for people to shit all over that. I remember we were having all these like informal bets in our green room before it came out. We're like, oh, people are going to hate this movie. And then it came out, and the first people I talked to about it were like the AVP Galaxy folks. And they were like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see it for a third time next week. And I was like, whoa. And fandom has embraced that movie like crazy. And I love that. So it makes me think that there are ways to do kind of Romulisian treatments. And by that, I mean things that contain elements that feel very alien, but to tell new stories with it, And this really comes down to what's going to happen with the sequel to Romulus. I don't think anyone, even those of us who love Alien Earth, are expecting Alien Earth to ever be a home run. Like it's just too strange. It's too out there. It's too different. That is a major component of why I love it so much, and that will always be a major component of it, because to your point earlier, it's wildly different. It pushes things in different directions. It shakes things up, and I'm somebody who loves that in art in general. Like I love trying new shit out, but I really love it when you have a franchise that is kind of in danger of being stagnant and becoming just comfort food, and you have somebody be like, "Fuck your comfort food. I'm going to do something that half of you are going to hate, and I don't really care. I'm just going to do it." I love that. Like I always say, I will always go to bat for people who do that creatively. But people are going to hate Alien Earth no matter what. I mean, I guarantee, even if next season is 100% perfect, people will have issues with,
of course,
a lot of the characters in it, a lot of the storytelling decisions in it. A lot of people will have canonical complaints about it. A lot of those are valid. I totally agree that I think the timeline is kind of a mistake, but we can't do anything about it at this point, and people have a right to feel that way. I'm not calling them haters, but people do have hatred for a lot of these things, and that's just going to be the way it is. And I don't think you can necessarily do anything about that. So that's why I'm kind of tabling the Alien Earth conversation more in terms of what a Romulus sequel could do, because to me, if that Romulus sequel addresses corporate greed and hubris, which to your point is exactly why people love the Jackson Star stuff so much, and that is, even in that first 2 to 3 a.m. recording we did on the floor of this room, that I'm literally sitting on the floor of the room that I'm in right now on a phone, that was something we all agreed on. You remember that? Like we were all like miserable and exhausted, and yet we were all like, that Jackson Star thing was pretty cool. I mean, everybody loved that. And to this day, that is, I share more art from that than anything else in the movie. I think about that more than anything else. I mean, I feel like there's so many novels you could write set in Jackson Star years earlier that don't even have anything to do with Rain or Andy or Rain's parents, the Carradines, or anything, that are just narratives about this weird little mining colony where the sun never comes out. I mean, that's great. You know what I mean? That is so rife for opportunity. And I think it's also because, again, it's speaking to this element of the classic Alien films that we love so much, which is the idea that the corporation just doesn't care about you at all, and that's scarier than them caring about being evil. Like there's something scarier about a corporation just not caring. That's a really scary thing. You know what I mean? In a way, kind of like the Alien is, because the Alien is also, we can't look at it and be like, oh, it's a predator, or oh, it hates us. Like it doesn't hate us. It needs us. It's using us. You know what I mean? Like it's the same fucking thing. Like the alien is the company. It's just from a very different angle, which could potentially be another theme to talk about. But so I would love a Romulus sequel to have that in it. I would love it to also have this idea of oblivion and of the inevitability of death. I mean, to that end, a movie that addresses that really well for me is Sunshine, the Danny Boyle film from 2007 or 2008. Love that movie. We did a frame rate on that a long time ago. I still just adore that film. That, more than most other movies outside of like 2001: A Space Odyssey, gives me a sense of the vastness and the scariness of the universe in a really real way. Ad Astra actually does a great job of that too, I think. A lot of these films that make me really, really afraid of the fact that at the end of the day, we're just sitting on a rock in the middle of nothing. I mean, nothing. That is a scary idea. So if you can get that mixed with the corporate and the hubris and some characters that we can really care about, I kind of feel like you can tell any kind of story with those elements.
I would agree. And let me ask you this question, Patrick. What do you think? There's one thing that we have not seen in Alien since the first film. What do you think that one thing is? Not at all. Like nothing. Like
I don't
nothing.
know what.
The exploration, the wonder.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've been thinking a lot about as we talk about what makes an alien film, and I think about Alien and how they went out into LV-426 before it was named that, and just that music, it was just, and you're with them, and that music is also really conjuring time and place and conjuring the sense of aloneness. We have not had any exploration in alien film since. With the caveat, of course, in Prometheus, there's
I was going to say Prometheus definitely,
and also in Covenant, there's some exploration too, but it's very different. It's not covered with a sense of wonder. It's not covered with the sense of awe.
Well, you know why?
It should be. Why?
I think, and I'll let you get back to the point, but I think it's because we're not in awe of it because we already know what's coming. That I think is a big issue. I think in the first film, the crew had no idea what they were walking into, and the audience didn't either. And so even though now we obviously know what's going on, the film still feels like it doesn't know yet. The film still feels like anything can happen. By the time we get to Prometheus, like we're walking into architecture, we realize, we get to Covenant, we're walking into a derelict we know the layout of. There's this sense of familiar. It's like you get to the promised land and you recognize it. Yeah, and that's something that could be scary if done well, but it's been done too many times that I don't think it can be anymore.
Well, but see, I would push back on that because I think, for instance, with Covenant, they're exploring this planet that feels very much like Earth. Trees very much like Earth. I mean, it obviously was Earth, but it's not. It's the exploration of it is also done. Let's move them. Let's keep them moving. Let's get to this derelict. Let's keep them going. In Alien, that does not happen. In Alien, it's like no. We're giving them time. And I would say to your point of, we know what's we know what's coming, but do we? Like, do we really know what's coming? And I'm not talking about the threat of the alien. I'm talking about what are they exploring? We don't know. And I would love for Alien to re-engage that sense of exploration where we're on terrain that's like, where are we? I don't know. And I think Alien does it beautifully. I honestly think there's that moment in Romulus in the beginning when they're bringing the big chap on. It's very 2001, all of the voices. It feels a little bit like that. It feels like, what is this? Where are we? What's happening? And it's momentary and it's up, but it conjures that sense of exploration. And it's not physical exploration. They're not on a planet. They're on a space station, but it's riveting in those small moments. Even the blackness of space at the beginning of Romulus, where we hear nothing. That's awesome. He conjures the silence of Alien. And then later on, by the time we get to the space station with Rain and everyone, it's all of that mystery is discarded for just moving through set piece after set piece. But I really feel like Alien should get back to its roots. And I'm not talking like people, let's go on this planet and they're, no, the alien's 2 miles away. What's going to happen? I'm not even talking about that, but just getting out of what's familiar for us, setting us down on a planet. Maybe in Romulus 2, that ship lands on some planet that they don't know where it is, and they have to walk on that terrain, and it's not friendly. And perhaps the alien threat isn't there, but the threat itself is the terrain. And I think in Alien, the planet felt like a threat. The planet was very alien. It wasn't just a creature. It was, where are we? And will this rock harm me? And what's around this next bend? And that's also an existential threat. And that has been lost in Alien. And I really would love Alien to return to those roots. And as I'm saying all of these things, I, more than probably most people, and I think you are probably very similar, I understand the conundrum of what fans want. Where fans are like, it's got to be new, but it can't be too new, and it's got to be different, but not too different. And we need new characters, but please make this character just like this character, but a little bit different, but not too different, because, and we need more Marines, but don't make them just like that. But they can say this line that this, like, that complex conundrum of fandom where people really don't know what they want. They think they know what they want, but they don't really once you push them. And at the end of it, they just want what they've seen before. And I think that is dangerous. And I think some of the reasons why what doesn't work in Romulus for us and a lot of fans is because it retreads that same story. We've seen this before. We saw this in 4 other films. Why are we doing this again? And not treading that down. But I think that there's ways that you can explore these things. And for instance, and I don't want to, well, we're releasing an audio drama next April, and I feel like we're exploring themes of what we're talking about in a very different way, in a very compact way, where there is exploration happening. It's a different kind of exploration, but it's like, what is this? What is happening? And I'm not at all saying that we got it down, we've cracked the code. But I think at the end of the day, when I think about this series, I think it's in the hands of millionaires. And that life experience is very, very different than the Ridley Scott, who was a blue-collar director when he made Alien. James Cameron, who was a blue-collar director when he made Aliens. These people weren't millionaires. David Fincher, most notoriously, he was not a millionaire. He was on his first film. And that sense of every man came out in those films. And then you move on, and I'm going to skip over Resurrection because that's such an anomalous whatever. And you have Ridley Scott coming back to the Alien series as a multimillionaire with things that multimillionaires think about, which is, how do I cheat death? Who made us? That kind of existential things, which are interesting, but if they're not told within the guise, or if they're not told within the voice of the right people, it's like, okay, over our heads. And it makes for something that's not tangible, that people can't fully relate to, which is why you have kind of Alien in the place that it is. I even think, like with Noah Hawley, and as amazing as some of those things were, and the characters, like, I do think that Morrow was really relatable as a character. I really do. But we didn't see a lot of Morrow. We saw blips of him, a couple of moments where we saw him where he had a lot of screen time, but then he sort of disappeared for a long time. He was not a main character, although he's been nominated for Best Supporting Role, I think.
Best Supporting, yeah.
Yeah,
and Sydney was nominated for best actress and best lead actress.
Congratulations to them. And I think Morrow was a really wonderful character, but also I can't really relate a lot to Morrow. And Morrow is not the everyman. Morrow is a very different kind of character. And I think when these films will be successful again, or the show, it's when people are quoting these people left and right. And not to quote them for the sake of quoting them, but they're quoting them because they relate to them. And you can relate to rich people. You can relate to people who live a life differently than you. It's all about what situation they're in at the time. And I think what Alien is for me, at its core, is being able to relate to people no matter where they are in the situation that they're in, because their money doesn't matter. Nothing matters. What only matters is how they get out of the situation. And I think that has been left behind by millionaires who, except for Fede Alvarez, who maybe he's a millionaire. I would imagine he might be. I don't know, whatever. And I also don't want to sit here and come off like, fuck millionaires. I'm not trying to say that either. But it's about worldview and the kind of worldview that you bring into the stories that you're writing. And people who have a lot of money and they surround themselves with a lot of money and they've been very successful, they struggle to write stories that normal people can relate to. And when Alien was working the best for me is when I could relate to it as a person.
There's lots of great comments going on. A lot of people saying let Noah Hawley cook, which I appreciate, because I do want to see where he takes this story very much. But also pointing out Morrow and Kirsch in particular. And I have to say, I got to push back on the quotability thing, because I see a lot of quotes, especially from those two characters making their way through fandom. Mario did a great thread in our subreddit maybe 2 weeks ago about people's favorite quotes from Alien Earth, and there was like dozens and dozens of responses. I do actually think that those characters are quotable, even though they might not be the most relatable. I think it's because they're like fundamentally
quote, but that's okay.
Really? I think those characters are very well written.
Monsters. That's the only thing
that was
I
in the
can think.
trailer. Well, there's the quote from the beginning about Kirsch, where he's talking about being food,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of Wendy talking about what weak people say to justify being weak, and I think there's a lot of really good quotes in Alien Earth. But that being said, it's fine if you don't like them. I'm not saying you need to, but I just think that I don't know if it's necessarily relatability, and I think maybe part of it is I think the more we get the same shit over and over again, the worse it's going to be. And I really
agree.
believe that, Jamie.
I
Like, I
agree.
really think it's really easy to sit here and be like, oh, I definitely want to have, blue collar workers up against a company, and I want to have them on a hostile planet where there's aliens and stuff. And, I mean, but then again, but then what you're doing right away, I'm not saying you, I'm saying us talking about it, is, we're just setting the stage for like another, color by numbers alien thing.
Absolutely.
Which again is, I think, just really bad. I mean, to me, the most exciting elements of Alien have nothing to do with the xenomorph, which is, again, my favorite monster ever. And you can see by my room, it's a huge part of my life. Like, I adore it. It is why I got into this franchise. And when we talked about what we love about Alien, that was literally the first topic that I brought up. But at the end of the day, what I really love about it isn't even actually the design of the creature itself. It's what it makes me feel. And that's something that I think has really been lost, because the second James Cameron made a hive full of expendable aliens in the second film, I think we lost that. And somebody pointed this out on that same Reddit thread. If Cameron did that today, that would be like sacrilegious. Like, people would lose their fucking minds. As great as Aliens is, and Aliens is an unimpeachably great movie. I think it is one of the best sequels ever made. I think it is one of the best films of not just the 80s, of the second half of the 20th century. I mean, I think it's a top 50 film of the 20th century, in my opinion. I think Aliens is basically as good as action sci-fi has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not a great alien film. And I actually really believe that. I think it is a great film. And I think it does a beautiful job of blowing these characters open and giving them new aspirations and hopes and giving us new themes. And I am not upset about it, because, again, as I keep saying, I'm somebody who goes to bat for people who do that. And I love Aliens for that reason. But Aliens kind of broke the whole idea that Alien gave us, which was this idea that, like, it's an insurmountable threat. It's this unknowable, ancient Lovecraftian entity that makes no sense. I mean, the second we get to Aliens, we have the hive, we have the queen who's laying the eggs. We know why they're ovipositoring it in the first place, because they need hosts. We know that the company's called Weyland-Yutani. We know that they're terraforming. We know this is why they were on this planet. We know that the aliens can be shot and killed. We know that they... I mean, if you go back to the first film, so many of the things that would have told us that are missing from it. And a lot of that's just accidental, and because Scott was in arguments with Fox about the runtime. But, like, we never see the harpoon gun in action, other than in the door at the end, right? So we don't even know if they really are vulnerable to being shot or anything. We don't really know what this company is, or like what their aims are. We just know that they're towing this refinery around, but we don't really know, like, what the point is. They're trying to get back to Earth because some company somewhere wants them to do something. So the whole first film is so enveloped in mystery. And when we do get to LV-426 and we do get to that engineer, we just have no idea what's going on. Like, we don't know what the fuck is up with this beacon. We don't know why we're touching down. Like, was this sabotage? Was this was the derelict? Was it sending a signal out? We don't know if it was the company doing it. And we don't even know if the engineer is in the chair is alive. And I said engineer, I should have said space jockey, but whatever.
How dare you?
I know. And that, we talked about that a lot when we did our space jockey episode like 3 or 4 years ago. We were saying how, like, all of us, the first time we saw that movie, and maybe even since then, are waiting for the jockey to, like, wake up all of a sudden, even though it's this fossilized thing, because we're so scared, even though we know what's happening. That is something that is just gone. And, I mean, I know you have been going on about how great Romulus is lately, and I agree with you, but Romulus doesn't have anything like that in it. I mean,
Agreed.
Alien Earth doesn't have anything like that in it either. I think Covenant does. And I this is why I go to bat for Covenant. I think Covenant has some moments that are very frightening and very off-putting.
100% agree with you.
I think the Backburster is a great example of that.
Yep.
I think, and I know that people complain about the whole throat bursting thing. I don't think it's quite as effective, but to me, that 10 minutes or so that goes from the spores going into Ledward's ear to the scene in the medbay on the lander, that is like the first time since before Aliens that I have felt that same way that I felt in Alien. Because even in Alien 3, which I love to death, and I will defend till the cows come home, and potentially have aliens come out of them. Even Alien 3, like, you kind of know what you're getting. There's moments of mystery in it where, You see it in the vent. But at the end of the day, it's still kind of a cat and mouse game. It's just an incredible poem of a cat and mouse game. But with Covenant, it's almost like as things are deteriorating and as Ledward is getting pale and he's being pulled back to the ship and the score is kind of falling apart and they're like still trying to get back and they're running out of time. And then that other crew member starts to deteriorate. It's this real sense of like, what the fuck is going on? We don't know the mechanism of transmission. We don't know what was going on with those spores coming out. We don't know why they're there in the first place. Were they evolved? Were they planted? Did it have anything to do with the wheat? Like we don't have any answers to these things. And what's good about that for me is that it's taking place in the context, to a point you made that I really agree with. It's taking place in the context of something that looks a lot like Earth, which should on its face be comforting, right? This idea that you go all the way across the stars and you end up, at a place with wheat at it. That's something that in a worse movie, who planted it? In a worse movie, and and all that shit is stupid. But like in a worse movie, that would have made it instantly banal. It would have made it instantly like, oh, they just didn't have the budget to make this work. But in Covenant, it's like you get there and you're confronted with something that for the first time since Alien, we don't know what's going to happen. That's really fucking scary to me. And that if we didn't have that 10 or 15 minute sequence in Covenant, I probably wouldn't even really like the movie that much. But that one thing for me is like that. And again, I go back to it all the time. It's like why I got back into Alien the way that I was growing up is because I was so scared again. I was so scared. We talk about this all the time, Jamie. Like seeing the preview when it was done at South by Southwest and stuff like that. I mean, that was like, I remember, I never forget. I saw part of that sequence because somebody uploaded it to Reddit and I watched it on my phone on the train home from work. And I literally was like doing this a little bit. And I never do that. I was literally like covering my eyes a little because I was scared. And I live for that. But again, then you have to wonder, well, how did they do it? They did it by giving us things that we didn't already have answers to. And an alien is something that doesn't belong here, right? An alien is something that we don't have vocabulary for. I think, and I do not agree with Ridley that the beast is cooked, obviously, because I fucking love the xenomorph so much. But it's worth pointing out that in Romulus, the alien is definitely not the scary part of Alien Romulus. In Alien Earth, I think we can all agree that the Alien Earth is not the scary part of Alien Earth. I do think that we need time away from the creature being the defining central aspect of these things. And I realize that's a weird, controversial thing for me to say that people are going to be cranky about. And I give you all the license in the world to be cranky. But I do remind you that I have tattoos of the alien all over my body, that I also went to bat again. Our last episode, I talked about how that's my favorite thing about the alien films. And I stand by that. I think I'm getting a little bit bored of just seeing the alien over and over again. And I think I really want to be confused again. I think our audio drama, to your credit, does a great job of that. And I think that it's not hard to do, but you have to get away from this idea that we have to have eggs and we have to have hosts and we have to have chest bursting and we have to have an elongated head and we have to have the 7 to 9 foot tall creature that weighs 400 pounds. Like it's all these things that we just know how it's going to play out. Give us something where we have no clue. That's why I was talking about Annihilation. It's very doable, I think.
Well, and I think to your point, what compounds that is the promotion where it's an alien here and an alien there and an alien. There's an alien in every single promo. It's like and this gets to, as you were talking, what I'm understanding you're saying and what I think I'm understanding about the Alien series. It's a lack of mystery. There's just a lack of mystery, and that veil has been pulled up. So it's like, oh yeah, here are the eggs, or here are the face huggers, and here are the aliens, and the aliens don't have any mystery to them. And I think probably to Alien Earth's detriment is it just lacked mystery. It had been demystified so much. It was just this toy by the end. And I think when Romulus wasn't working was because Fede did the same thing to the aliens. Someone even mentioned, I saw somebody write something today about the aliens and how they just turned into this sort of dumb mass that they were just kind of running at rain and shooting them. They weren't intelligent. They were just sort of, boom, boom, boom. The aliens have lost their mystery. And I think how the studio can help them retain that mystery or recover that mystery is by not showing it to us in the trailers all the time, actually treating it with dignity and mystery and respect and making it scary again. Because I 100% agree with you. The beast is not cooked. I mean, how many photos do you see or images or drawings by people that we see on a daily basis that we are like, this is scary as fuck?
Yeah, all the time.
And we never see that, and it never makes its way on screen. And it's not just that they're scary as fuck to not know where this thing is, to walk into a space station or walk into, and to have it drenched in the dark, and have the marketing for the films drenched in the dark, having it as, but these days marketing is like, no, we got to tell them what they're going to see. We need to tell them there's going to be eggs. We need to see this in the trailer. It's, the studio system has lost faith in these things. They've lost faith in the mystery. And because they've lost faith in the mystery, the actual content, terrible word, I'm sorry, the actual films and show are suffering because of it, because the studio has lost faith and in the mystery of the creature. But also, it's not just the studio, it's the way that these things are written. And I think this mystery plays in tandem with sort of the everyman. And I do really feel strongly that it's important for maybe not the audience to relate to the characters, but the audience to be able to feel like they respect the characters. And I think that some of that's achieved in Alien Earth, 100%. I agree. I totally do. But I think in general, there's not a lot of respect for the characters in Alien Covenant or in Prometheus. They're like, these people are fucking stupid, And I mean, Alien Resurrection, it was the same way. I mean, not only were they stupid, I mean, it was inane, like stupidity. And this is the new legacy of Alien, is this inane stupidity. And you couple that with a lack of mystery. I think coming with all of that baggage into Alien Earth, I think Noah Hawley, even if he would have done perfectly, it's a tough thing. It's a tough place to be. But I really, really just want to echo what you're saying, Patrick, that this IP has lost its mystery. And the mystery starts with the writing, and it continues with the promotion and how you're selling this film. And are you going to then turn this into, and I again, to another point that you made, I think James Cameron did dumb those aliens right down. He dumbed them right down. They became hive-minded, like drones or warriors or whatever who work for this queen.
Those are literally the two types of aliens that we see.
Yeah. Or the dog alien.
Right.
But I think that's also called the warrior too, whatever. And I think, again, I think Aliens is an unimpeachable masterpiece, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things in there that really help to dumb it down. And I think David Fincher, to his credit, really tried to remystify that alien. And I think he did a pretty good job of it, to be honest with you. I think that creature was just mired by its execution and its compositing and all of the things that we've talked about before. But I think I almost rest my thesis on the mystery more than even relatable characters. If they are going to continue these films and series without mystery, and that mystery also does, like, the creature should have a mysterious design to it, I think, and it should be executed in a mysterious way. And I think, again, to your point that you made, I think most everyone agrees the way the alien looked by the end of Alien Earth was pretty terrible. There was no mystery about it. And I'm not even just talking about how they're retreating it or acting around it, but just the look of it. It had lost all of its mystery. And I think you're going to gain, the more mystery they walk towards, the more respect they're going to gain from their audience.
I agree 100%. And I do think that that's the conundrum that we find ourselves in, is how do you give people what they want and what they don't know they want yet, at the same time? Like, how do you make people mystified and also give them something that feels like an alien project, That's the challenge. I mean, that, and it's not an impossible challenge, because it does happen. I think Trachtenberg is showing us that with Prey, and Badlands right now, which, by the way, half of our chat is just complaining that you haven't watched Badlands in theaters yet.
I'm sorry.
He has not seen it yet.
I might go tomorrow afternoon so I can be on. That trailer, for everybody, that trailer just did not interest me at all. It looked like this CGI fest, and it looked like a comedy, and but I'm going to go see it because I hear it's great, and I'm sure it is. I loved Prey. I fucking love Prey.
Prey is amazing. Yeah. And again, Badlands, like, it does have a different vibe. I think personally that it works great. But regardless, there's other comments that I want to get to quickly. Archmaster Rennie, who, thank you for being a patron, by the way, says that we should adapt that the franchise should adapt the Cold Forge because it has new and scary ideas in it that Romulus and Alien Earth lack. I agree. This is actually like the fourth time that Alex White's novels have come up today, even just in our staff chat. Alex's work still is like a high watermark for me in terms of modern alien storytelling. I think that their contributions to Rogue Incursion really elevate that project, which needs it, I think. And I think that also that their two alien novels are still just, they always come up as examples of really compelling alien storytelling, even among people that I'm friends with who are just kind of readers of science fiction and not necessarily huge alien fans. They love Alex's books, and they have new settings, but they still feel very much like Alien. They're like RB232 is a really believable place. The Charybdis complex is a really believable place. The corporate angle is extremely there. Like there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape and all that, and yet there's just tons of horror, and a lot of that horror is very hard to pin down. It's stuff that like it would be very hard to express in art because you kind of have to just imagine it for yourself. A lot of the body horror is like really upsetting in those two books, and I think that would be great. I mean, both of those books, which I've now read a lot, had me on the edge of my seat even upon rereading it, because there's a real sense of I don't know what's going to happen next. And I mean, Alex, who again is a really dear friend of ours, has talked quite a lot about this on this show. And one of the things that they did was they used tense in really creative ways to create a sense of an unfolding. So if you read I think it's the Cold Forge, it's entirely in present tense instead of being in past tense, which is a subtle thing, but it's kind of an enormous thing, because then it just makes you feel like it's actually happening in real time. And maybe this is actually getting at something deeper thematically, Jamie, which is that I think these alien movies have to be made in the present tense. They have to be made in a way where it doesn't feel like we know what's happening because it's already happened. It's already been told to us. Aliens, which I'm already getting a lot of flack for my comments, which fine. I knew I was going to by saying that. Aliens is like one of my favorite movies ever, so don't give me shit. But Aliens is very much a present tense movie, even though it's a demystifying film. Aliens the whole time. I mean, I've seen Aliens more than I've seen any other film in the history of my life. All 40 years of it. I've probably seen it 500 times. I am never bored. I never feel like it's just color by numbers or rote, or like I know what's going to happen next, even though I know the whole script. Like Aliens always feels like it is unfolding before me, and I'm just on this ride and I can't go anywhere from it. And that is an amazing feat.
It's urgency. That's what you're talking about. It's this urgency. Whereas, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I think a big timeline issue with these Earth, Prometheus, and Covenant is it's all in the past. It's like, okay, that's great. Like, what's going on post Alien 3? What's going on with the legacy of Ripley? Like, take us, but they stay in this sweet spot because they think this is where the money is. And it's not working.
And it's not. And again, it's the studio doing that. It really is, Jamie. I really believe passionately 100%. About that. And I think that Noah Hawley set Alien Earth 200 years after where he ended up releasing it. And I think he was forced to rewrite. I think that's a lot of why it took so long. And I think that's a lot of why we were told not to discuss the timeline before it came out. I think that's why in earlier interviews, he was talking about it being post Alien 3. And before Resurrection. And then I think that started to change. And it went from that to him saying, well, it takes place at some unspecified point in the timeline. And then it was only like the year before it came out that it was set as a prequel before Prometheus even. And I'm like, why? Oh, no, not before Prometheus, before the events of
Alien. You're right.
Yeah, it's 2 years before Alien. Yeah, I'm already forgetting that. Jeez. And it's like, I can feel the studio boxing Hawley in. And I think the studio boxed Fede in as well. And I know that we like to get all dramatic and say like, oh, Fede was like kicked off, or, it was because Ridley was like swinging his dick around. I think Fede probably was just frustrated with the studio trying to tell him what he could and couldn't do. Like, I think, and I said this in 2019 when it was first announced that Hawley was doing an Alien project. I said, I don't think he's going to have a xenomorph in this thing. I think I think he's using Alien in a different sense, and it's going to be a different thing. And you were correct. You said that's not the way it's going to happen. Which you were right about, but I think I was right in terms of what he was writing at the time. I don't think this was like an Alien project like we know it. A lot of people, including some people who worked on it, have expressed this notion that I agree with, which is that in some ways, like Aliens, I think that Alien Earth is an amazing story, and it's a wonderful piece of art. I don't know if it's a wonderful piece of alien art or a wonderful alien story, because to me, the alien specific elements in it feel somewhat supplemental or somewhat unnecessary to the thrust of the narrative that he's trying to tell. Although there's a lot of thematic things going on that really feel like Alien to me, and there's a lot of other things going on that feel like Alien to me. So I'm not saying it doesn't work as an Alien story, but I feel like it kind of was supposed to initially have been something different. And then what happened is I think the studio said there's not enough aliens in this thing. We got to sell merchandise. People are not going to come unless we have a creature in it, that people know. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was all about the ocellus originally, or about other organisms, and that had nothing to do with the xenomorph. And then they were like, well, okay, we got to put it in. And then what happened a year before it came out, we started seeing the alien and all of the advertising for it all over the place. And then we get to Comic-Con and the whole side of the Hilton Bayfront is an alien's face, right?
It's like, we fucking get it. Like,
It's just
where's the
everywhere,
mystery here?
And
Yeah.
you look at all the stuff we got, like all the swag that we got, which is really cool. It's either Prodigy, which I love, even though it doesn't necessarily fit the aesthetic, like at least it's different, or it's got an alien face on it. And like anybody who watches Alien Earth is not watching it thinking, oh, the alien is the star of this thing. And that is a big deal with Alien Earth. And that is the reason why people don't like it. I'm okay with it because it's a different story, but like I get it. The ocellus very much upstages the Xeno in this thing, and we've talked at length about how both of us have issues with how the xenomorph itself is treated, that it's not really respected. Again, it's a different story. People can tell whatever stories they want to tell. I don't love that aspect of it. But my point being, like, I feel like Hawley was pushing back on a lot of these things, and the studio was like, you're either going to do this or you're not going to be on this project, and we're going to stop it. And there's a lot of pressure that happens, Jamie, when people, you know this better than I do, because you're actually in, the SoCal area and you have friends in the industry. Like, there's so many people involved in a project. Something like Alien Earth that costs like almost like you can measure it in terms of how much percentage of $1 billion it costs to make. That show had 500, 800 people working on it. I mean, it had, but not just, camera people and crews and props people and, set dressers and designers and artists and stunt people and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And then you have a cast with like 30 principal people in it. They all have their handlers and their assistants and the catering and the location people in Thailand and filming all these things. I mean, there's hundreds of people and hundreds of millions of dollars. And it gets really scary, I think, to be the person attached to it as the showrunner, to be the person in charge of the whole thing, and to be like, this is going in a direction that I did not intend for it to go in, but the plug is going to be pulled if I don't go along with it and play ball. So I'm going to just sort of do what the studio is telling me to do, but I'm not thrilled about it. I think that happened with Alien Earth, and I really think it happened with Romulus a lot. I really feel like things happened behind the scenes in Romulus that Fede was not thrilled about. And I think he was like, you know what? I have all these amazing people working on this. I'm a massive fan of this franchise. I'm going to find a way to get the movie made as well as I can. But the studio wants a lot of comfort food in it. They want a lot of callbacks in it and things like that. So he just did it. And he was like, no, I'm done. I think that is like the cardinal issue that people are running up against. And you know what? It goes back to what we've had since the very beginning. And by the very beginning, I mean post 1986, which is the studio thinks it knows what's best for Alien, and it just doesn't. I mean, that is just the truth. The reason why we have had such uneven things since then is I think largely because the studio just hires people that are not right for the job. And when they put them there, they give them all these instructions about what they can and can't do. And then they have Ridley Scott executive produce everything. And then Ridley comes in with his team. And how are you going to say no to a fucking Knight who is, one of the most prominent filmmakers of our lifetimes? It's just tough. Like, it's easy for us in a lot of ways to sit here and make these audio dramas that we love and that, like, our friends and fans out there love and we all work on, because it's a very, like, the risk is not that great, not like there's no risk involved with that. Of course there is, but it's not going to go out to millions and millions of people as a legacy project where that, thousands potentially people worked on for millions and millions of dollars. It's really different, and it's really hard to have an auteur-driven project for a legacy series like this come out and not lose some of the sanctity of its voice. This is why we always go back to Andor being such a special thing, because that's an example of that actually happening, But if you look at, I mean, I don't know, I just think there's a lot of challenges. And again, I'm not to say that it can't happen, but I think for me, at least, kind of in summation from our conversation so far tonight, for me, it has to be scary again, because that is ultimately, I think, what's probably most important to me about Alien is it has to scare me, but not just to thrill me. It has to scare me in a way that illuminates things about the human condition that I think I have avoided thinking about. And going back to the way we started this whole conversation off tonight, for me, I am somebody who would rather not think about the ephemerality of life. I would really rather not think about the fact that I was just nothing before this, that I was just atoms, and that I'm probably going to end up like that. Although who knows what happens when we die? We're not here to discuss that tonight. But like, it makes sense, I think, that we are not going to be you and I. We're not going to be podcasting after our deaths anymore.
Well,
You know what
might.
I mean? Maybe we will. Perfect Organism season 3000.
Interdimensional perfect organism.
But I mean, that sounds pretty fucking cool. But you know what I mean? Like, there's this real sense of like, that's the scary thing to think about. And Alien, the original film, and Alien 3 both force me to confront that. The essential loneliness at the center of the human condition. And yet, in spite of that, you have characters in the first 3 films, especially, who rail against that in a really beautiful way, who find humanity and find connection. And although ultimately they lose out to the vast blackness of the universe, whether that be the company, whether that be the physical universe itself, or whether that be the creature, before they do, they find meaning and they find purpose. And that is literally what we are doing in our lives. Like, we know that we're fucking dying someday. We know that everybody we have ever loved, every breath we have taken, everything is going to be gone. Because even if we survive billions of years, our planet's not going to survive. Like, it's gone. Alien gives us the chance to confront that through the language of horror. And I think that provides the backdrop that is kind of all that I need to feel like something is alien, personally.
I am completely on board with that. And I think the irony here is, we have a series, at least the original series, the original trilogy is about this group of people / heroine battling this company. And I think it's still ironic now that we're past Fox and it has belonged to Disney. We're still dealing with the same things, like kind of this company that can't get things right. This company that's out for commerce over art. Not to say that those things can't converge, because we know that they have. It's a very interesting place to be. And I always want the best. I always want to love everything. I think even one of the reasons why I write audio dramas and we produce them is because I want to tell stories that I think aren't being told right now. I want to tell stories that are more true to Ellen Ripley's story, not in terms of reflecting it, but getting into the pathos of those. And I one of the reasons why Sigourney Weaver's, like, her discussion of what that story, the Alien 5 story, whatever, really interested me is because she started talking about character right away. It wasn't about aliens. It wasn't about anything. It was about what is it like for this whistleblower to be in jail. And she was like, yes, eventually we'll deal with aliens and blah, 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 blah. But she was really at the heart of character. And that's really, at the end of the day, what touches me. And I've seen there's plenty of films out there that I've seen, like Oppenheimer, who was a very rich man, also very smart and talented. And I think about that character, about Oppenheimer, on a daily basis. That's, of course, because of the film. I think the film is profound. And it didn't matter what his income was. It didn't matter that he was an elite. It didn't matter that he was one of the smartest minds of his time. What mattered was his heart, and that I felt like I could understand him. I felt like there was a piece of him that I brought with me, and that's what you want. And I think, for all intents and purposes, that is just not what's happening. And I really hope, and I think we talk about risks in films and shows, and I think about a show like Welcome to Derry. That show has been firing on all cylinders. In fact, I think Pennywise is more scary in this show than he was in the film, even though the first It film I thought was brilliant. Second one was okay. They understood the message. They understood the homework. And they wrote a story that expanded the universe, that expanded even what Stephen King wrote, but it feels like it. It feels authentic. And Pluribus is another show that I feel similar. There's no precedent for Pluribus. It's its own thing. It's a very new thing. But it's just firing on all cylinders. And that is what I want from an alien film or show, and it is not happening. And that requires risk. That requires risks from the studio to say, you know what? Tony Gilroy, we're going to let you cook. We're going to let you, and maybe Noah Hawley needs to cook, but I don't think Noah Hawley is going to be the only one in that kitchen, even for season 2.
Yeah, I would agree. I gotta say, it's funny with Welcome to Derry. Like, I definitely agree that it's well done, but I'm bored of it. I don't know. Like,
Are you bored?
we haven't watched the last 2 episodes because I think it's because Mike and I are pretty big Stephen King fans in general and pretty big It fans. I've read the book. Blah blah blah. We saw the first movie in theaters a lot, second movie quite a few times. So like we really get the rhythm of these stories at this point, and I feel like because Welcome to Derry keeps doing the same thing with like isolating people and then scaring them about things that frighten them. Again, it's like the formulaic nature of it gets a little tiring. Although I do agree that there's really great elements. And again, I would love to catch up on it. So maybe I'll be eating these words. I could definitely see it. But the reason we haven't like finished those last few episodes yet is because at least I have been kind of like, okay, I kind of get it. You know what I mean? We'll see. I think it's really well done, and I'm excited to see more of it. But then again, I find myself tuning out because I kind of feel like I know what's going to happen. Anyway, all this being said, I think it's just hard. We also, I don't think we're really well equipped as like a species to. It's so funny because we have like the chat going, and then we have our like group chat going, and then we have text messages coming in about the same thing. I literally have 3 different things where people are commenting on things that I'm talking about. I got to get better. My ADHD is getting the better of me tonight. Going back. I don't think that we were really made as a species to be this thoroughly franchised. And by that, I mean, when you and I were kids, or I mean, when you were a young adult and I was a kid.
Be careful.
Movies were not like this. Like they were primarily new, like most movies that came out that were blockbusters were original ideas or they were adaptations of books. And there were some sequels for sure. There were, but like in general, the rule of thumb was sometimes we'll get sequels to things, but mostly we're just going to kind of get new stories out there and kind of see what sticks. And through the course of our lives to date, that has really switched to this model where if something makes money, it's going to get sequels. And I have never been comfortable with that with the Alien series because, as you know, and we talk about this a lot, I like don't need more of it. Like I love what we have so intensely that I don't feel compelled to have to get new quote unquote content because I don't know. I kind of feel like we kind of have what we need. So the fact that we always do always makes me a little nervous because like I kind of know it's not going to do as well as the original films did. Even if it does great, it's just like getting back to the days of Cameron and Scott in the early days feels to me like a bit of a pipe dream. And it's something where I think if we are always waiting for that to happen, we're always going to be disappointed. And I know miracles can happen. I know rare things can happen that become an Andor, that become a Dark Knight, that becomes something that just truly subverts everything and is a true masterpiece. And I know that Alien has the ingredients to do that. I mean, that's part of what's frustrating is it's one of the great stories of our time. I mean, it's one of the most enduringly powerful pop culture quantities that we have. And yet it's so hard to do it right, So we're kind of set up to always be like this. I mean, that you and I are never going to be completely over the moon on anything that comes out. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Don't say that to me.
That.
No, I don't know that. I'm hoping that there is something that is a home run. I hope, like, I live for that. I live for that moment where I live for those 10 minutes of Alien Covenant. And I wish it could be sustained. And I'm hoping for it because we see things that are sustained. But, the last thing I'm going to say on this for this episode, one thing that I have not taken into account, or I have, but not maybe in this episode, is the studio system. The studio system that made the original Alien films and even Prometheus in some ways is dead. It is dead and gone, and it has been overtaken and hijacked by studios that are more businesses than they are art makers. Whereas before there was a real good mix of the two. There was like, yeah, we're going to produce this, we're going to do that, but then we're going to make our blockbuster and make some money. That's all over. That is all over. This studio system is here for the bottom dollar. It is here for the money that they make. That time where studio execs could take a risk, and some executive over there could take a risk on a filmmaker, and they could make a movie like Barry Lyndon or whatever. Those days are dead unless you're A24, unless you are Neon, and unless you are maybe the couple other fringe but
But what's
valid.
happening? But what's happening with A24 now? They're coming out with crap. That's the thing.
True.
A24 is way too extended now, and they're getting into all these diversified spaces, and they're getting
That's
into
true.
gaming and documentaries and all these things. And what's happening is they're gradually giving more money to projects, and those projects are doing worse. Neon is starting to have failure. Neon was so exciting to me because like I thought they were like the antidote to what A24, which I've been a huge fan of since like Enemy came out in 2012 or whatever, 2014. And now I was like, Neon is gonna subvert that. And now Neon has a bunch of clunkers coming out that are have much bigger budgets, and people are going to, and that they're not, doing well, because it's the way that these things work. Like that's the way that movies are made. Movies are just made. If something works, they're like, just do more of that. Because at the end of the day, there's always fucking shareholders on everything, because that's the only way to finance these things.
We need a new studio system, a new independent studio system that's colossal, but that is built on art and less on commerce. But I know that that's a hard thing to do, because you need to make money. You need to have things pay for themselves. I really get it. I totally understand it, but I think the studio system, the way that it is, Disney, the way that it is, I to your point, and I hate to admit this, you might be right. We might not ever get an Alien film or an Alien whatever that's like Andor, that's like Derry, that's like even fucking Foundation, which is a show that is firing on all cylinders, which is amazing. But I live for that hope. I will continue to record episodes with you and with our team, hoping that someone gets it right, hoping that someone takes the risk, hoping that someone says, Ridley Scott, you need to sit this out, and let them cook.
I mean, he's literally about to turn 90. Like at some point he's got to just fucking stop. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm not coming at this with just totally like unbridled pessimism. I think we will get plenty of moments that are Welcome to Derry quality. I mean, I don't think Welcome to Derry is an Andor. I think Andor is like the best show I've ever seen in my life. Like I think there's going to be. I can't see that happening, because I think it's just so rare that happens in the first place that I almost don't want to. I just don't want to really hope for it, because I kind of feel like I'm just always going to be so let down by things. I think we could absolutely get a Welcome to Derry out of the Alien franchise, where it just works really great and people have fun and they're scared, and it's, that could definitely happen. In terms of true greatness, like the original first 2, maybe 3 films, like Andor. I mean, Andor I think is just as important as those films are. Like I don't know. I think the more we wait around for that, the more upset we're going to be. And the less we're going to be there to notice things like that 10 to 15 minutes in Alien Covenant that are great. The less we're going to be present to notice things like Kirsch talking about becoming animals again. The less we're going to be there to appreciate those things that do sneak through this incredibly, turgid and mired system that we have, where actual art happens, And again, I think that there are many moments, and I know we might, disagree on this, and that's fine, but in Alien Earth that touched the ineffable for me. There's many things in that feel profound.
I would agree with you. No,
that feel very poetic and very beautiful and really artful. And I love it for that. And all these people who just really write it off, like, I totally get it. It is not Alien in a traditional sense that people are potentially looking for. And that is not a judgment on people who don't like it whatsoever. And it's also not a judgment on people who have different ideas of what belongs or doesn't belong in an Alien project than I do. I think that you're just as valid, those of you out there who feel that way. Like, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I do personally enjoy the exercise of looking for those things within projects that come out. And I know that, you've been bringing up this whole like piecemeal enjoyment thing lately. I'm fine with that. Like, I kind of enjoy that because it gives me a chance to like find meaning in things that I'm consuming. I think that like what I like to have in Andor, yeah, obviously that would be incredible. But I also like love Alien Covenant to fucking death, even though I think a lot of it's crap. Like, I think that in a lot of ways it does things that are really amazing. And I think Alien Earth is a much more consistent thing than Alien Covenant is, to be totally honest with you. And there's a lot of things in Alien Earth that I just love. Would I rather not have episode 5? Yeah. Like, would I rather have the alien not become a complete subservient puppet by the end of the thing? Yeah, of course. There's plenty of things that I would like change about it. But like, I love the things that I love about it. And I also recognize that when you love something in a piecemeal manner, other people might be loving different things in a piecemeal manner as well. And that creates the chance to have conversations like this. It creates the chance to have people come on to defend things that they love that we don't. I mean, in the chat right now, we're getting plenty of people who are defending aspects of Alien Earth that we are complaining about in really eloquent ways. And even just seeing those comments come through, I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point. And to me, like, I think that's special. Like, I love that. I hope someday we get an Andor moment where we are all just completely bowled over and in love with everything and everybody's so happy. But even as I'm saying that, Jamie, you know just as well as I do that Star Wars fandom is not like that about Andor, because there are many people who love Andor in Star Wars fandom. There's a lot of people who kind of can take it or leave it or think it doesn't really fit, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with you to some degree, but I think initially when Andor was on, people were like, what? Fandom was like, what's this? And they were shitting on it. By the end of season 2, from what I could tell, I would say 75% of fandom was like, this is fucking amazing.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. But again, Jamie, like we're talking about, that means 25% of fandom doesn't recognize that like maybe the best television show I've seen in the last 10 years or something happened in a franchise that was much more mutilated than Alien has been. I mean, are you kidding me? Like for all the complaining we do about Alien being all over the place, I mean, Star Wars has been turning out true garbage. I mean, unwatchable stuff that straight up ruins characters canonically and in terms of their motivations. And Star Wars went from giving us, Mandalorian being this wonderful show to having to like just completely bastardizing the technology that they made it with and giving us all these things that looked like they were shot in someone's fucking bathroom with a green screen, blah, blah, blah. We can go on and on. And then in the midst of that, you have Andor come out, which is the most, unerringly timely piece of fiction I think I've ever seen in my life in terms of what we're living through, and expands the universe and buttresses the characters and does things that are very different and does things that are very familiar and does them in a poetic way that doesn't waste a fucking millisecond. That's that's a generational achievement. Would I love to see Alien get that? I would love that more than almost anything that I'm not directly related to or actively in love with. I mean, I really like to have Alien have an Andor moment would be one of the great things of my life. I mean, that would truly be, that's like what my childhood was waiting for, is to have something where everyone I know loved something in quote unquote my franchise. You know?
I will always continue carrying the torch for that. I will always hope. I will hope that Romulus 2, if it gets made, because we don't know what's going on with that right now. I hope that Romulus 2 is that answer. I really do. And I think I don't enjoy the piecemeal. Well, first of all, the piecemeal way we're enjoying things has been going on for decades. But number 2, I'm just tired of complaining. And I'm using like a term that I don't like to use, which is complaining. I feel like I'm critical, but after a while, I'm just tired of being critical. I'm tired of it's exhausting. And I think what's also exhausting is even though Star Wars has had a lot of garbage in it, it also hasn't. It had Rogue One. It has had Andor. It's had even moments in Ahsoka, which I think Ahsoka is a pretty good show. It's not a great show, but it's a pretty good show. But there's also been garbage still. But we haven't even had that. And I'm not saying Alien has been littered with garbage. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that Alien has just been mid. It's been mid.
But to be fair, I mean, you're talking about there's been 40 Star Wars projects, and true. There's been 8 Alien ones. You know what I mean? So again, in terms of a batting average, I do think it's a little bit different.
Agreed.
But I also don't want to give excuses. I mean, at the end of the day, Alien deserves to be treated with more respect than just about anything in Hollywood. Alien is like a rich legacy that people fucking adore. So like, I don't think I also, you were talking at the beginning of the recording tonight. You don't want to come out like the bad guy because you're like, complaining, not saying you're complaining, but whatever, being negative about things. I also don't want to come across like I'm being like, oh, everything's great. Oh, it's great if it's not perfect. That's, whatever. What I'm more trying to elucidate is that I enjoy the process of finding things to love through the language of other people. And this is something that you and I talk about a lot in terms of like philosophical, differences and similarities that we have. I really, I personally like live for that feeling of not liking something and then being shown how to like it. Like I really, really treasure that. And a lot of my favorite things that mean the most to me now are things that initially I didn't really love, especially in terms of music. I mean, my life is littered with pieces of music that I thought were garbage and that I then became obsessed with because somebody that I care about showed me what it meant to them. And then I listened to it again and then it came out. I mean, a great example of that although I'm not as passionate about her as you are, is Enya. Like, I thought Enya was a joke my whole life. I literally just thought that she was a punchline. And then you showed me a lot of her music, and I was like, this is not even close to a joke. And now I love Enya. She's on many playlists that I have. And that's a, kind of a minor example. But my point being that this happens a lot, and I love that feeling. So I try not to get hung up on the piecemeal thing, because I look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To have conversations,
Totally.
to find things to love, and to find those aspects that speak to us, and then to go into the next thing thinking, okay, more of that. Like, let's see more of it, And I think we're going to get there. Like, I don't think that this franchise is anything near dead. I don't think that it's anywhere near hopeless, but I do think that the environment that these things are being released into is a very difficult one, because I think people are very angry. And I think that people have very different ideas of what Alien is and is not. And I'm glad tonight we took some time to kind of go through some of that. And I would really encourage you, and there's so many amazing comments in the chat that we're not getting to, and I'm sorry about that. But like, I think we clearly will need to revisit this, because it's a really good conversation. But it's also funny that you and I, even though we have, very many different opinions about a lot of things in Alien, basically agree essentially on what the elements are that are important, right? This idea of like working class being repressed by, capitalism, the scariness of the oblivion at the center of the universe, and the human spirit shining through that enduringly in a way that is hopeful, even if it might ultimately be quote unquote meaningless. It gives meaning to the lives that exist in that moment in time, in that glint in space, in that ship. And that, I think, to me, is really all. If you can do those things, I think you have a great potential film. And if the studio can just shut the fuck up for a minute and just let people do something, like if I had $3 billion, I would give $2 billion of it to a few charities in the world. I would give like $500 million to my kids. And then I would give the rest of it just to like one. I would say
they have to work for it.
Yeah, they wouldn't know they were getting until they were older. It would be like I would die and they would have incredible wealth, whatever. Yeah, this is my fantasy. But then the rest of that 500 million, like I would just find like a Denis Villeneuve or somebody like that who I just know is not going to fuck it up, and be like, let's not tell anybody that you're doing this. Let's take 10 years if you want. I will bankroll the entire thing and nobody will ever know that I did. And if it loses all the money in the world, I don't give a shit. Like do a Francis Ford Coppola thing, but like with a movie that's not what the hell is it called? Metropolis, like Megalopolis. Yeah, right.
I want to see that. I need to.
Right, but like that's clearly like that's kind of the the dark side of this is if you give it to somebody who like has an ego and is out of touch, maybe it'll turn out bad. Long story short, the future is still bright. It's just I think there's some things that have to happen.
Yeah, the future is still bright, and I always look to the next thing, always hoping that I'm going to love it. So, yeah, here's hoping. And so, as we close this, we just ask that you guys like and subscribe to this channel. We're trying to grow it at least to 10,000. We're on our way to that. If you have friends, family, let them know, like and subscribe. The next episode we're going to be recording is probably going to be a follow-up to this with a roundtable, maybe including our new team members, possibly. So stay tuned. The Christmas, that's right before Christmas, so that might be delayed until January. I think we should take a break after this. But.
Oh, that's funny. We haven't even talked. I feel like normally this time of the year we're like, we really need to like take a break for the holiday. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm like feeling energized. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right. Yeah, Amoeba Jelly's making fun of me for saying Francis Ford Coppola's Metroid. Honestly, I would watch that. See Samus in a Coppola movie. The chat has been amazing tonight. I'm sorry that we haven't been keeping up with it, but it's been super vibrant. Please join us for these. I love that we have some new names in here tonight, as well as some ones that we always see. It's amazing. We record on Tuesday nights. It's bi-weekly. And we're recording this on December 9th, which means the next one will be, probably 2 weeks from now, unless it's Christmas. But we always announce it ahead of time. Jamie makes these beautiful graphics. If you follow us on socials, you'll know. I mean, I would love to have 80 people in this chat room and just have it be a complete bonanza, because, like, maybe this is why I'm feeling so energized right now. Is all of you,
Last question: is Sangria nurse Micah?
I don't think so.
Oh, that would be a good she's Latina and she's a nurse and
she does love sangria. No, I think that's somebody else. I mean, I'll ask her when I go downstairs. But yeah, sure. Larry has been awesome tonight. Poop Vane, Julian D'Souza. Yeah, I mean, we got what's up, Jules? We've been sharing a lot of music lately. Lots of friends in there. It's great seeing you. And congratulations again to our new team members, Mario Benvenuto and Kyle June. They are both people who we have been close friends with for a long time. Mario was just on the show recently. Mario runs Wired Workshop. Kyle has an amazing music project called Cementation Anxiety, and Kyle is going to be helping us score the new audio drama that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Mario is building some crazy stuff, and he's kind enough to be sharing it on our feed. I also want to give a shout out to Ross Dead Dark, our beloved friend and team member, who just completed another piece of art today that we're sharing. Ross, make sure you follow Dead Dark 23 on socials, and also a t-shirt that we didn't plug yet, which is freaking awesome. We've been talking about Alien 3 all night tonight. If you want a real Alien 3 shirt that shows an imagined moment with basically almost an ecstatic vision featuring Giger's design, for the creature that never made it to the screen, check it out. It's on our socials. We love to sell you that shirt. It's amazing. Get it for Christmas for somebody. Get it for Hanukkah. Get it for Kwanzaa. Get it for anything. We love you guys.
We do. Thank you so much.